All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to the Spellbound Masterclass. In this half an hour, 40-minute little spiel, we're going to talk about how to free yourself from these stories that limit your life, these spells, if you will. So let's get into it. My name's Anna. I am an intuitive astrologer. I run the astrology company, Anna B Astrology. Um, and this is really how I like to use astrology. I like to use it to better our human experience by understanding how the energies of the zodiac affect us, how to move through them, and how to really use them to expand what you think is possible for you versus limit your life or put you in a box. So let's get started. I wish I could get that out of here, but oh well. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Hold on, guys. Okay, I guess we'll do it like that. All right. So let's all get cozy. So before I like to start something, let's set our intention. So you may have heard that this is called Spellbound, and you're like, oh man, what does that mean? I'm a little, It's really to understand what a spell is, how you are using them in your daily life without knowing, and how to move through them and where they live in your astrology. So let's set an intention is to understand what a spell is, what spells we are living out, how to move from it, and create something new and create something that's more aligned with your heart's goals and desires. Because most of the connotation of spells is negative. You feel like you are under a spell, and this really has a lot to do with generational curses as well. That's kind of like the overarching bubble, and then you have these spells coming out from it. And they are things that you are like, I just can't seem to move from this. I can't seem to stop believing this. So, very important. What is a spell? So, what are we believing? What is this spell? A spell is a word. It spells a word or words that you believe and you speak over your life as truths. I'm sure you guys have heard this. Our words are spells, so cast them wisely. We may not think that our voice is super powerful, but it is. It's literally what recreates these spells in our life so we keep experiencing them. If we would say something different, we would experience something different. And no, that's not in this really surface level, basic kind of understanding. Because when you really start to speak words that light up your life, that excite you, your body has a reaction. Your body is where your wisdom is. Your body is where the stored trauma and all of the emotions and unprocessed stuff that is kind of holding these spells in place because your body basically just wants to keep you safe, wants to keep you alive, and you are alive at this point. So it says, hey, whatever we've been thinking or doing up until now is good. So let's keep doing it. Even if your conscious mind says, I want to experience something new, there's quite often a disconnect between the body and the mind. That's why there's a certain kind of lack of embodiment with a lot of the teachings you hear around choose a different thought or just say something else because it kind of leaves out the body. So as we go through this course, this class, you're going to understand the body's role in this. But what I want you to kind of take away from this page is a spell. It's just a word or words or a phrase that you believe. You believe it. That's why you think it has a hold over you. We think so many thoughts every day. There's so many things that we get exposed to. Why do we attach to some and others we don't care about? Again, as we go through this, we're going to get into like the body's role in this. Um, because that's essentially it. These spells you want to break through. Wait, let's hold up for a second. What I want you to do is I want you to take a moment. We should have done this in the intention. What's the spell that you want to break? What's the thought that you are believing that you no longer want to believe in? Take a moment. What is it? It can be small, can be big, can be something like, I don't want to doubt myself so much anymore, or I don't want to believe that being sensitive is a bad thing, or it could be something like, I don't want to believe that I'm forever single, or I don't want to believe that I'm stuck in this job because I'm not smart enough. It can be literally anything. So take a moment. And if you can't think of one, things around our looks is a really, really common one that we so effortlessly just say over our lives. Our looks, our weight, if you're a female, and like if you're a male as well. But this is something, maybe your capabilities, but this is something we so easily say. Money as well. Oh, I don't have money for that. Or I can't fit in that. I'm a bigger person. Or I can't go in this store. That's a big one that really bothers me. It was like, I can't go in this store. They won't have anything to fit me. So did I go in? No. If I went in, did they have something? Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. But the point is, I cast that spell over my life. So I, in general, did not go into cute little boutique stores to get clothes because I just assumed they wouldn't have anything. So that kind of spell really tied back to like my looks and my body and how I thought like being in a bigger body was bad and not cute and you're not going to have anything in the cute stores and you have to buy moo and we could go on and on and on. But some of those things are really, really easy, especially when you get around your friends who just start talking about these things. That's kind of what we want to get into. So pick a spell that you easily say in your life. Maybe you don't have to pick the most important one or the deepest one that you feel like you're on an unlovable wench and you're always going to be alone. Maybe you don't pick that one. Pick something a little lighter. And I say wench with much love. Okay. So we touched on this. Why do we believe these spells? Why do we believe these bad things about us? Why don't we just stop believing them? Why do we think that we are cursed? Why do we think that these spells exist? Because if we would or could stop believing in them easily, we would, because why do we want to think about negative things for ourselves? One, it's the water we swim in. There's an unconscious bias here. A lot of times these spells or curses, we don't even know we're doing it. We think it's normal. I'll use myself as an example to talk about your weight with your friends or your family. You think it's normal for people to kind of subtly make fun of you if you're in a bigger body. You think it's normal. It's just always been your experience. And that's actually not the experience. It's actually, those things actually aren't okay. But a lot of times we don't know anything else. We just are like, this is just how it is. So if you say that phrase, this is just how it is, there's an unconscious bias there, meaning you need to do some examining of your beliefs about, because no, nothing is just how it is. There's always choice in everything. So a lot of this comes from what was modeled for us in childhood. A lot of this unconscious bias, unconscious beliefs, the water we swim in, because it was the water we swim in when we were kids. It's what was modeled for us. And this is a big one you'll see around relationships. What was modeled for you in relationship with your caretakers, your parents, or whoever was around, you will often recreate because that is how your body and your nervous system got to experience relationship. So they were like, this is normal. This is normal. Doesn't have anything to do if it was good. It says normal. And again, the body's always trying to keep you safe. So it's always like what's familiar is good. What is unfamiliar is bad. Okay. These are narratives that we have heard about ourselves and I think I wrote a typo here. These are narratives that we've heard about ourselves long enough that we believe them. Again, this can really translate into your appearance and what has been passed on to you from your family. If you have always kind of been the joke because you're kind of bigger, you're going to continue to do that to yourself. If you don't like your curly hair because your mom didn't like hers and grandma didn't like hers, you're going to believe that curly hair is not as good as straight hair. If you believe that if you've been hearing things about money your whole life, money is bad, money is evil, maybe your dad and your grandpa or your grandma worked so much and were struggling and they always had issues with money, you're just gonna say these things because your parents have heard them and you've heard them. You've heard them so much that you believe them. Um, because we don't have physical proof of the opposite. So we have these narratives, these stories that have been passed down and they've been spoken so many times that they are just really, these are spells that are really entrenched in creating like these neural pathway loops in your brain that you don't have physical proof of the opposite because again your conscious mind can only process a tiny bit of information, and your conscious mind, your body wants to always conserve energy, so it's not going to go out of its way looking for proof of something you don't believe. It's going to give you a confirmation bias and say, you believe this, here it is, so you're just going to focus on that. There's this piece of your brain called the reticulator activating system. RES, I believe that's what it's called. It literally filters out what you have learned is important and through everything else because it says these 5 to 7 to 10 to 20 things are really important because it was the water we swim in. It's what was modeled for us and what we've heard our whole lives. So these must be important. So even if you have, this is how you can have two people having the same experience and and they each take away something different because they have learned from their experiences in life that certain things are important through this piece of your brain. It literally just won't focus on things that aren't, it doesn't think it's important. So this is why sometimes you're like, I want to believe something else, but then my external world just, it just keeps showing me this. It's not that it's showing, well, it is showing you that, but your brain is picking up on that. There's other things there too. So we don't have a lot of physical proof of this opposite. We feel comfortable with them. Your nervous system feels comfortable with these spells. Again, because your nervous system functions on feeling comfortable and familiar. If you have heard these, if you experience them, if you see them out in the world, your mom talks about it, you're going to feel comfortable with it and you are going to feel uncomfortable with thinking something else. For example, if you feel comfortable with thinking curly hair is shit, it's going to feel really uncomfortable to start to love your curly hair because you're like, but I have all this experience that it's crap. Um, you just have to keep doing it. Make these small steps. We'll get into that. But you feel comfortable. Your nervous system feels comfortable. And we have attached them to a certain emotion. This is a big one. Spells are thoughts. A lot of times we'll think something and then we'll feel something, or vice versa. We'll feel something, our nervous system will alert us to something, some sort of new belief out there that we don't believe. Maybe that curly hair is like the new vogue thing, but you're going to have all this unprocessed emotion and trauma around your care. So you have attached a story to these feelings, and it's not necessarily true. Let me clear that up. Feelings, emotions are sensations in the body. They don't come with a story attached. Oftentimes, we have attached a story due to our unprocessed trauma. So, say you were going to your first date and you were going to leave your hair curly for the first time, even though your whole family, maybe it was the prom and your mom and your sisters were like, oh, I don't know about that, but you were really excited. So then all of a sudden, your prom guy comes in and then he's like, oh, curly. Or he's like, oh, I thought you were going to straighten it. Or maybe you always straighten it, but you left it curly. Oh, that brought up so much emotion. So now you have like trying something new with your hair tied to the emotion of rejection. So we need to feel through those to unhook the belief. Because once you feel through some process, some deeper emotion, then the story unhooks with more ease. It's kind of like you have to feel through the spike of the emotional wave, the roller coaster. You have to feel through the top to get to the other side, and then the story loosens. Okay. So, why don't we believe better things? Like, why do we keep believing those? Our brains have a tendency to look for the negative. It keeps us alive. It's not personal, it's conditioned. Your nervous system feels safe with the original stories, even if they don't serve you. I think it's really important to really understand that it's not personal. There's not a part of you that's hating you and wanting you to be ugly or stupid or whatever. It's just conditioned. All these things, all of that, all of this on this page, this is your human conditioning. The water you swim in, what was modeled for you, these narratives, your life experience, your nervous system. This is the human condition. This is your human conditioning. This is why it feels normal. It's not personal. It's not personal. You're not doing something wrong. Like I said, the nervous system feels safe with these original stories, with these original spells. Doesn't matter if they don't serve you, it has kept you alive. And your body, your nervous system, that's its biggest job, is to keep you, lovely human watching this, alive. Water break. Okay, so let's take a deep breath and really be like, it's not personal. These spells, which are usually negative things we think about ourselves, is not a personal attack from inside. It's a part of us trying to keep us safe, but we're still going to move from it in a safe way because that part of you trying to keep you safe has learned that, you know, we have to keep Anna safe, so we have to do these things. So you really need to honor that part and say thank you, but we're moving forward. Exactly. Why does it feel personal? Why does it feel personal, even if it's not? It's not personal. So why do we feel attacked? Because our ego has attached a story to them and made it part of our identity instead of a passing thought. And here's an example. I'm feeling a lot of emotions. Someone feels a lot of emotions versus I'm an overly sensitive person. The first one is just thoughts, a fact. I'm feeling a lot. The second one has made it a personal attack on yourself. Maybe not attack, but it's saying I'm an overly sensitive person. And this is a big one because I feel like a lot of spells we have in our families have to do around our sensitivities, our intuition, or our emotions. And that's only because our parents didn't know how to handle them. They didn't realize that emotions are a totally normal thing. That's all it is. So instead of just knowing that no one really knew how to talk to you about your emotions, you now think you're an overly sensitive person. You now think something is wrong with you because maybe you are more sensitive. You think something's wrong with you because of it. And this is because there's an attachment here. We made it part of our identity instead of one of the million passing thoughts in our head because this RES system in our brain says, oh, that's important. Like, I remember when my mom said, stop crying, you're too sensitive, and then slapped me. So then your brain's like, whoa, okay, we're going to keep that on the lookout because we don't want to get slapped. So we're not going to feel our feelings, and we are going to really attach to that so it doesn't happen again. And this ego attachment has a lot to do with the unprocessed trauma I was speaking about before. Because if that situation that I just spoke about has happened to you, there's emotions in there that because that didn't feel good, and like your body remembers, your body keeps score. It says, I remember when I cried and someone slapped me, so I'm not going to cry. But you still need to let that emotion move through you, and then you will find that the ego loosens from that old story. Okay, let's get into the astrological take behind this. Why are some things hard to change? So, astrologically speaking, now, please take this with a grain of salt if you've had a lot of trauma in your life. I am not saying your soul chose to experience that trauma, and I am not saying it's your fault, and I'm not saying there's certain, I guess I'm just trying, I don't want you to bypass your human experience with astrology. But it sometimes, not sometimes, We do choose our birth chart. Now, that doesn't mean we choose our suffering. Suffering and pain are different. Suffering is the human condition to really sit with our pain and not move through it and like stew in it. But it is part of our path to transmute, alchemize, sit with some of the more difficult aspects in life. And your birth chart can show you the way forward. For example, if you had a difficult childhood, if you had a difficulty with relationships, if you have a difficulty with your looks or your health and your body, your birth chart's not saying sit here and suffer. It's saying this is the path forward to change these things, because your birth chart actually holds a lot of keys on how you can move through some of the more difficult aspects of your life, not stewing and suffering in them, but alchemizing the emotions, the pain, the stories, and the spells. And alchemizing just means change. It means to change, it means to shift. So these are some birth chart areas that show where these origins of the spell can live. These are some of the areas of your chart that they're very pattern heavy. There's a lot of influence of um, either parallel or past lives. There's a lot of influence of this unconscious emotions or what was modeled for us. There's a lot of deep patterns here that have been with your soul or with you for a long time, and you did choose this life to transmute them. So these are some of the places in your chart that are very pattern heavy. And like I mentioned before, why can't we move from these spells? Because they're really entrenched in us. It's become a pattern. We see it outside of us, so we believe it more. We hear our moms or dads, our sisters talking about it. We see their relationships. It's just really like this is the way things are. So pattern interrupting in your birth chart is a huge thing that will help you alchemize these difficult placements and patterns in your life. And then it will help you alchemize the difficult areas of your life because that's what it's showing. So, um, the fourth and the eighth houses. This is influences from family, influences from generational trauma, influences from the water you grew up in, influences of what was modeled for you, influences from your own childhood. Your own childhood, specifically the fourth house, the family, what was inherited from your family is more the eighth house. So, everyone grab your birth chart. And what we're doing here, what you need to do here, is you need to look at the sign that rules either the house or the placement. So sometimes you'll have two signs ruling a house. I want you to just take the one on the cusp or the bigger one, or if it's confusing, use whole sign. So that's just one sign. And all of these placements will be in one sign. So you'll have Saturn in Libra, or you'll have Chiron in Aries. What you need to do is you need to really understand the whole energetic spectrum of that sign. We'll use Aries as an example. Aries goes from angry, impulsive, rage-filled, selfish, that's shadow, that's unconscious energy of Aries, to a leader, to a sovereign soul, to an independent person that really follows their gut versus their mind's identity. There's a transmutation of energy. There's not just one side of the energy or the other side. There's always the more unconscious shadow aspects and the more conscious exalted aspects. And you can really look at this in the terms of where do you unconsciously react versus taking a step back to consciously choose. That Aries example, many Aries unconsciously react from impulse. So instead of doing that, because unconscious means you just kind of do it, it's really tied into that nervous system. It's really tied into these spells and all these things you've been modeled. You take a beat, you take a moment, you take a breath, and then you choose. How do I want to react here? So you're not choosing, you're not just impulsively acting, you're sitting and you're kind of feeling into what you want to do. And either you can like, what's your heart telling you or what's your mind telling you, whatever. Like you're just taking a moment. So then you can you can choose a more sovereign approach instead of impulse. Sovereign means you're owning yourself. You're leading yourself. How are you leading yourself? Because you're not making impulsive decisions out of unconscious biases or trauma. So, every single sign has this. Every single sign has all of these energies attached to it. So, what we're going to do is we're going to transmute them in these places. So then you're going to learn to go from reaction to response. You're going to learn to take all this unconscious programming we talked about. This is the human condition. And you're going to sit with those feelings and the discomfort, and you're going to do the work around them. And we'll get into that more. But you're going to alchemize them so then you can choose, because we don't always want to just be unconsciously reacting here and there and whatever. We want to be sitting and choosing a better option for us. Okay, so let's go over this stuff. Fourth and eighth houses and the 12th house. These are all water sign houses. Water holds memory. There's a lot of memory that comes. Memory is a huge part, and nostalgia, what was inherited for you, the water you swim in. All of this stuff is like coming from your family, coming from what they experienced. And I'm not, give your family props, because they all were oppressed and repressed and they experienced things, a lot of stuff. So you don't have to. And I'm not saying you haven't had a hard life. I'm saying it hasn't been for nothing, because you can still feel their pain, and their pain can be part of your pain. But we're going to transmute all pain so we can move on from these spells, because maybe you have a fear of speaking up that really originated from your grandma who was in World War I, who, tried to speak up or spoke up and saw people hurt, or maybe she got hurt. So she was like, I'm never speaking up again. You hold that as well in you. So this is what I'm saying. That becomes the water you swim in. So, 12th house can also be influences from spirit, past life, parallel lives, religious conditioning, anything very intangible. Fourth and eighth houses are a little more tangible, family, generational trauma. 12th house is a little more intangible. This is where a lot of unprocessed emotions live, from a lot of intangible experiences that you may just have and you don't know why. That's actually one of the biggest reasons of not being able to break these spells, because it's so intangible, you don't know where they came from. You can't like get a grasp on it. So you're like, I don't even know what the spell is, but I just can't go forward. Your Scorpio and Pluto placements have a lot to do with how powerful you think you are. They have a lot to do with reclaiming power that was taken from you, or really balancing out the uneven power dynamics so that you feel like you are a powerful creator of your life and you have the energy, power just means energy, to go forward and do the things that you want to do. So in your Scorpio and Pluto placements, you're going to usually find that you don't feel powerful. There's going to be a power struggle, but you're going to alchemize that. Again, sitting with the energetics of where these planets are, and Scorpio, what sign it's in, I mean what house, and shifting it. Saturn placement. This is where you feel unlucky in your chart. You feel restricted. You feel fears. I can't go forward. You can't shine. You can't just be your big, bold, beautiful self. It feels like you got the short end of the stick where your Saturn placement is. So again, this is a really big karmic indicator that this is an area of your life that your soul struggles with, and you've chosen this life to really deal with it, to alchemize the energy, because Saturn placement needs boundaries and discipline and devotion, and a lot of times we like to cut corners, so that's why you're feeling unlucky. But there's a lot of pattern there, a lot of pattern. Same with your Chiron placement. Chiron placement, this is a reoccurring pain point in your life. This is a big pattern. So like say you have a Chiron in Taurus, this means that you may feel a low self-worth, so you try and cover up with materialistic things like eating or shopping, because you don't feel safe in the body. You don't feel like you don't feel very valuable, so you try and surround yourself with valuable things, and you could become a hoarder, or a sex addict, or whatever, because you're trying to like, that was a bit extreme. You're trying to make up for something. But What you would do with the Taurus placement is you would go from unconscious aspects to the conscious aspects to break these patterns. So you wouldn't just eat when you felt emotional because you felt you had an experience where you felt like your low self-worth was validated. You will do something else. You'll sit with it and go outside and really feel into your body because Taurus has a lot to do with the body, and you will transmute it through the body. You won't run from it. You'll make yourself feel really safe and stable. But your Chiron is going to be where you do experience the same theme of pain. I like to call your Chiron placement your wisdom point because where you experience pain in your life, that makes you one of the greatest teachers to help others with it because you've helped yourself with it. And again, this really comes down to we're not stagnating in these placements. This isn't for stagnation. This is for movement. This is for moving from unconscious to conscious. So let's keep that in mind. We're not here to stagnate. We're not here to be like, I just am unlucky in life and I keep experiencing that. No, we can make a different choice once we move, once we get a little um more aware of our patterns and come back into our body. Black moon Lilith placement, this is where your repressed femininity lives, your witch wound. And then also your Mercury in the third house. And I put this on here because we're specifically talking about spells. So we're talking about mental prowess. So your Mercury in your third house, this is your mind. This is where your mind and your communication kind of rules. So this is a really great place to look about how do I get out of these spells by turning on some logic, or maybe I need to balance out of the logic with some intuition because sometimes using logic can lock these spells into place because again, if you believe it and then you see it, your mind's going to be like, well, that is the only way for us because we keep believing it. That's where you need to turn on the right side of your brain, your creative, emotional, intuitive side, and say, this doesn't have to be the only way. Okay. So those are the places in your birth chart to look. Now, like I said, you need to go in and do your own work of the energy transmutation. I have a dog back there. Maybe you just heard that. Of the energetics of the sign on the house or the planet or the placement. So that's the astrology part. Now, if you want more help with that, I am making at this time, it will be made, an astrology glow up mini course around breaking your own generational curses. I like to do these astrology glow up courses at a very affordable price point. I think they're $33 at the time of this recording. And it teaches you how to work with this on a much deeper level and how to use your astrology much more specific. So if you want that to help you with that, reach out. But let's finish up a few things here. So, very important. Stop reaffirming these spells with your own voice. I spoke about it briefly in the beginning, but unconsciously, and really think of this when you're complaining or gossiping with friends, or you're looking in the mirror or shopping, or you're doing something where you tend to go a little more unconscious. What are you saying about yourself? What are you saying about your family? What are you saying about your wealth? What are you saying about your sensitivities? Are you just trauma bonding with people, or are you trying to work through things? And I'm not saying anything bad about if you have friendships where you talk about hard things you went through, but I am saying, are you reaffirming these spells? I can't quit my job because I'll never get another one. Or I can't be an entrepreneur even though I really want to. Or I can't find a man or a woman or something in between because of how I look or how smart I am or whatever. A lot of times we we literally speak the spell over our life all the time. An example for my life is with my online business. I had a really hard time being like, but it's never worked before, so why would it work now? Like, no one cares. I had a really hard time because I would look at all the example of the first couple of years and be like, I'm just talking to nobody. No one cares. I'd be like, I'm talking to nobody. So then I would talk to nobody. But I would just be venting or I would be just complaining. So I really had to get a hold of that stuff and be like, do I want to just keep believing that no one cares? No, I had to do the deeper work. So you have to do the deeper work to break these patterns, which essentially comes down to saying something else and doing a different action. This is really important to break patterns. You need to say something else to yourself and do a different action. So may sound easy, but it's not, because next time you're with all your girlfriends and they're all complaining about their weight or their looks and you don't, and you just say, well, I'm really liking how I'm looking today. That's going to cause a little upheaval because, like I said, a lot of friendships or groups or gossip or complaining sessions or even venting sessions, they're low-key trauma bonding. So if you don't agree or if you try and change, people are gonna be like, well, who do you think you are? Or maybe you have better friends. I hope you have better friends than that. But this is just a normal human thing when you start to say something else. If you said one thing about your relationships your whole life, and then you start to say something else, your friends, rightfully so, are going to be confused because you became friends with them probably because you had the same values around things like relationships or things like what you like to do. For example, from my life, when I stopped drinking, lost a lot of friends because we got together to drink. So when you don't drink, it's like, well, what are you doing? And then people start to doubt and it gets all weird. So it's not always easy to break the pattern. It can really bring up a lot of stuff, especially to do a different action. Because when you do a different action, you get the body involved. And when you get the body involved, everything comes online to be like, what are we doing? And is this safe? If you're just saying something, yeah, there'll be fears coming up, but doing a different action will really put what your body's actually afraid of on the front and center because it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So when you do a different action, really pay attention to the story that comes up then, because that is a really important one for you to move through so your body feels safe. Okay, so how are we going to shift this? How are we going to shift? I already mentioned this. Find the sign associated with each of those placements. Notice where you're operating in the unconscious energy of the sign and do the work to switch to the conscious energy. Really keep in mind, where do I react in life? Why do I react in life? And how can I shift to a response? So take a moment right now and really sit with just a few seconds of like, when's the last time you reacted? Was it in a relationship setting? Did you feel attacked? Did you feel like you weren't being listened to? When's the last time you reacted? Because that's exactly the place that your unconscious patterns are showing up. So that's exactly the place where you need to pause and respond. So this really does take doing the work. What is the work? The work is the things to unhook yourself from your human past conditioning, detaching from the stories, the ego. You're processing the stored emotions. You're letting those emotions flow through you. You're learning to regulate your nervous system. This is a really big one because if you have a dysregulated nervous system, it's going to be hard to make a different choice because your body's literally going to say, we are in danger. This is where self-sabotage comes in, but it's really your body saying, we're not letting you do that. It's unfamiliar. We don't understand it. You might die. So come on back here. And this looks like doing a TikTok live for the first time. This looks like wearing your hair down in public. These are not like life or death things, but your body is still attaching a life or death story to it. Or there's a unprocessed emotion that's attached to a life or death story from when you were little. Because when you were little, things did seem life or death. If your parents were mad at you, fuck. Like it felt a lot more scary back then. So again, be very compassionate with yourself because you are taking your power back right there on the end. Take your power of choice back. A lot of us don't realize we have so many choices in life. We can literally choose to create a different life for ourselves if we uncouple from all this unconscious stuff that I've been talking about. Say something new, do something new. That brings up all of this stuff. The ego will say, you're not smart enough, you're not good enough. You'll feel a stab in your stomach. You'll start to sweat. Or maybe like you'll start forgetting things. A lot of times forgetting things or procrastination or chaos is just an unregulated nervous system. So when you learn to breathe, when you learn to breathe certain ways for what the nervous system needs, when you learn to regulate yourself and come back to a state of calm, and then you can get your like logical mind back online and then make a different choice. So a lot of times when you're triggered, is when you make an unconscious reaction, like an unconscious reaction, because you get triggered because your nervous system is just sensing threat. It's remembering threat from a long time ago. So your survival mind, your amygdala, takes over any logical part of your mind and is like, we have to live. We have to stay alive here. That's what happens when you react versus respond. So like like it's the work to come back down and show your body that you are safe and learn ways to get your logical mind back online and really unhook a lot of this stored trauma in your body that's reminding your nervous system of the fear in the first place. That fear still lives in your body. That's why when something outside of you now, in this day and age, triggers that same fear, you still have that fear within you and you react much bigger than if you didn't. This is the saying, if it's hysterical, it's historical comes in. We've all been triggered and had a huge reaction over something that the present moment situation didn't really call for. Again, that was stored emotion coming up and out. Be very compassionate with yourself because whatever triggered you, reminded your body of that pain that you've been holding in the first place. So that's why it's so important to do the work, even though it will feel wrong. It will feel scary. You'll feel guilty. You'll feel bad. And you'll also feel silly because, again, who am I to do or say these things? And it will also, it may feel like you're offending an invisible enemy. And this is something I find with deep patterns entrenched in the fourth and the eighth houses and the 12th. You'll feel like you're offending you don't even know who by choosing yourself. And it will feel all these things. You'll feel guilty for putting boundaries up. This is a really big one. When you first start to put boundaries up, you feel very guilty. You're like, you feel bad. You feel like, well, am I on a pedestal? No, you've just been surrounded by people that have never put boundaries up around them. So if you say no, they're going to be very offended. They're going to take it personally. For all those reasons I said about why we take it personally. Other people are going through this as well. So, like, just know that when you start to make these new choices, it doesn't always feel good. A lot of times it feels really bad. But again, you are shifting that energy. You are letting it come up and out. And then once it comes up and out, you kind of ride the energetic wave. You can get your logical mind online and say, am I a bad person? No. Do I need to feel guilty about this? Another example from my life. I ordered a matcha I didn't like the other day, and it's really hard for me to I worked in customer service forever, so it's hard for me to say I don't like this, I want something new, especially because the girl who I ordered it from was like, this is my favorite one, and it sounded so good, and when I got it, it was absolute trash, and I hated it. But I was like, oh, I can't just I felt so guilty. Luckily, it all worked out. The owner, who I knew, came out and was like, do you want a different drink? You're not drinking that. And I was like, yeah, it's just not for me. So it was fine. But I felt very guilty. But did I need to feel guilty over not liking a drink? No, that's not something to feel guilty over. Feel guilty over if you did something that goes against your values or your morals. Not liking a coffee is just a matcha, is just having a difference of opinion. But if you grew up around people that you could not have a difference of opinion around, they made you feel guilty. So now you feel guilty when you have a different opinion, even though it's not an appropriate response for feeling guilty. It's just what was modeled for you. It was what was learned. It was the water you swam in. So part of that is really unhooking the stored emotion in you from when you felt guilty for something you didn't need to back in the day, the fear there or the ick or whatever it is, you have to unhook in this present day to say, hey, I don't need to feel guilty for bringing this matcha back because I don't like it in the first place. Not something to feel guilty for. So, to wrap this up, the ego is not your enemy. Your ego is just trying to keep you safe. Your ego is an identity. That's all it is. Don't attach too hard to it. You don't need to do so much ego work if you're really just following your heart. You just need to know that your ego will chime in to keep you in the same patterns. Your inner critic may be loud. Take that as a sign you're on the right path. Because we don't always just want to do what our ego is telling us to do. That means we never grow, we never change, and we always stay in this little box of what's acceptable. And that comes from what has been acceptable in our past. Many of us don't want to do this. We want to move and we want to grow. So, very important. It's just trying to keep you safe, and it will speak up when you break these patterns. Don't take that as you're on the wrong path. Excuse me. When your inner critic is loudest, it's mostly a sign you're on the right path because you're really stepping out of your comfort zone, which is where growth happens. And I did want to mention this because I'm filming this in Scorpio season. You do have an ancestor connection. You have source spirits who are cheering you on. They may, because we are talking about the eighth house in the family and all of this lineage stuff. These ancestor spirits are cheering you on now because they didn't have the tools back then that you have now. So they are saying, yes, go, go get it. Like, we're not mad that you're making a different choice. Like, you don't have to feel like you're leaving the family behind. You still belong with us. And they're so happy that you're doing this. And this really applies to everyone. But if you have a connection with the other side and spirits and your ancestors, really utilize them as a tool to help you through this. And that's all. So now we're going to do question and answers, but I'm going to stop recording this. Um, but yeah, that was it. I hope you guys got something from it. And like I said, if you want to go deeper, the Curse Breaker mini course will be up. So you can take all of this and apply it to your astrology and really find a path and a blueprint out for these spells or for the curses that you want to move on from. And your astrology can guide you. It's a great tool. Okay. All right, guys. Have a wonderful night.